Hello, welcome back. So today we're going to have the third part of A Bushy Tale. If you remember, last time Squish learned that the squirrels have a secret. Maybe this time we'll find out what that secret is. It's looking quite likely actually, because chapter 5 is called In Which Squish Learns the Squirrel's Secret. The next morning, Squish woke up early. It was so early that there was still mist around the high branches of the trees, and the branches were damp and slippery. Squish waited patiently until his mother came to collect the young squirrels and bring them back to their dray for breakfast. Squish didn't really enjoy his breakfast, even though it was acorn mash, which was one of his favourites. He was too busy thinking about the squirrel's secret. He knew that he wouldn't just be able to find out about it by accident. That was how secrets stayed secret. He would have to be very brave and ask his father, and the thought of this made him quite scared. His father was still being very serious, even though he pretended to enjoy Scamp's jokes at the breakfast table. After breakfast, Squish's father went to sit on a pile of pine needles and leaves, which was where he sat when he wanted to do some thinking. This usually meant that nobody should disturb him, but Squish knew that he had to. The thought of the squirrel's secret was too big in his head to keep there without saying something. He crept over to his father and sat next to him. "Yes, young Squish," his father said. "Do you want to say something, or did you just feel like keeping an old squirrel company?" "What's the squirrel's secret?" Squish blurted out. He couldn't help himself. Magnus turned and looked at him. His face was very stern, and Squish felt like running away. "Where did you hear about that?" he asked. I don't know," Squish stammered. I just heard someone saying..." Magnus's face stayed very stern for a moment, but then he surprised Squish by smiling. "Squish, do you really think I don't know the smell of my own children, even through the walls of a dray?" I'm sorry," Squish said, hanging his head. I'm sorry I spied on you, but it was all so serious and scary, and I wanted to know what was happening." "You've always been very inquisitive," his father said, with another smile. "You've always asked more questions than any of your brothers and sisters." "I like to know things," Squish told him. "It's good to know things," Magnus said. "Come with me." At first, Squish didn't know whether to follow his father. He thought he might be about to be punished for being inky, whatever it was he had said. But his father had said it was good to know things, hadn't he? So Squish followed his father out of the dray and down the trunk of the tree. They stopped at the bottom. Magnus sat and looked up at the tree. It was so tall that Squish could not see the top. "What is that?" Magnus asked, pointing a paw at the tree. It's a tree?" said Squish, who thought it might be a trick question. "Yes, it is. It is a very tall, very old tree. Do you know where it came from?" "Oh, it didn't come from anywhere," Squish exclaimed. "It's always been there. That's where we live." "Oh, Squish," his father said, shaking his head, "you're very young." Squish's father pulled something out from the oak leaves on the ground and pulled out an acorn. "What is this?" he asked. "It's an acorn," Squish told him. "Everyone knows that." "And where does it come from?" "Acorns come from the oak trees," Squish answered, reciting it like he had learnt it at Professor Otis's school. "That's right. And oak trees come from acorns." This was such a silly idea that Squish laughed. "How can something that big," he pointed to the tree, "come from something that small?" He pointed to the acorn in his father's paws. "That," said his father, "is the squirrel's secret. Our tree has not always been there. It has been there a very long time, longer than any of us can remember. My father lived here before us, and his father lived there before that. But once, a very long time ago, long before our family lived in this tree, it was just an acorn." "But a tree, an acorn is, well, it's an acorn." Squish was very confused. "And what do we do with acorns?" his father asked. Well, we eat them. Squish knew the answer to this one. Mum makes mash and... What else do we do with them? Squish thought about this. He knew the answer. We hide them, he asked. Yes, Squish, we hide them. Why do we hide them? Professor Otis said it was so other animals don't eat them and we have plenty of food when the acorns and nuts don't fall. That is true. But not all animals eat acorns and nuts. Brian and the other badgers don't eat acorns, do they? No, Squish said, wrinkling his snout. They eat worms. It's disgusting. Well, there's another reason why we hide nuts and acorns and pine cones. That is the squirrel's secret too. Come with me. Magnus led him a short way across the floor of the pine woods. He pointed his paw at a small plant which was growing out of the fallen pine needles and leaves. Do you know what that is? His father asked. Squish thought about his plant lessons with Professor Otis, but he hadn't really been listening that day. I'll tell you, his father said, that is a very young oak tree. If it is left alone, one day it will be as big as our oak tree and other squirrels will be able to live in it. Everything is small when it starts. You were very small once, so was I, so was everything. Now look at this. Squish's father carefully dug the soil away from the bottom of the plant, and Squish could just about make out what looked like a broken acorn. Squish looked closer and to surprise, the stem of the plant seemed to be growing out of the acorn. And that is the biggest secret of all, his father said, pushing the soil back around the bottom of the plant. Oak trees grow from acorns. Acorns grow on oak trees. If we do not have trees, we have no food. We would have no twigs and leaves to build our drays. The birds would have nowhere to make nests or branches to sing on. No one would have anywhere to live or food to eat. Now do you understand? That is why squirrels hide nuts and acorns. It is because we know that if we do, new trees will come. That way your children will have trees to live in, and so will their children after them. But why is it a secret? Squish asked. He thought he was beginning to understand some of what his father was saying. All the other animals think we hide the nuts and forget about them. They laugh at us. I know, his father said. We let them think that. They're all too busy with their lives to think about the future. They do not know that we are laughing at them. And that, young Squish, is the squirrel's secret. You mustn't tell anyone. I won't, Squish said. He wasn't sure if he understood it enough to tell anyone. Later, when the mist had cleared, Squish and his brothers and sisters went out to gather nuts and acorns. Now, as well as watching out for the greys, Squish had to think about where he was hiding the nuts and acorns he'd gathered. He had so much in his mind that he forgot his promise to his father. When Squish had to cross the big black path, he ended up telling everyone the squirrel's secret. Chapter 6, in which a small idea grows into a big plan. Squish thought a great deal about what his father had told him over the next few days. Every time he passed an oak tree, he thought about how it had once been an acorn. Every time he hid nuts and acorns away, he thought carefully about where he was hiding them. He always tried to make sure they were hidden in a good place to grow, where the soil was soft and dark and damp. He just thought it was a pity that one day soon the greys were going to come and take all the nuts and acorns for themselves. He wished he could come up with a way of stopping this from happening. He was talking about it one day with Colin and Brian. He had to talk to somebody about it, but he couldn't talk to his father, because he could see his father was already worried about it. He couldn't talk to Scritch or Scamp, because they would just make a joke out of it. He would have liked to talk to Whitetip, but her father was keeping her and her brothers indoors most of the time. Who were better to talk to then than his friends? The only trouble was he had to do it without telling the squirrel's secret. Squish and his friends had wandered through the pine woods and were getting near the big black path. They weren't supposed to go that far on their own, but they liked to watch the no-furs whizzing past in their metal boxes. They don't seem to care about anything, Squish said as one of the boxes went past so close to them that a rush of wind shook the trees and ruffled their fur. I bet they don't have to worry about things like the greys coming to steal their food. But what are you squirrels going to do about it? Colin asked. I don't know, Squish told him. The older squirrels are talking about it a lot. Said Brian, whose nose was in a pile of leaves. Brian's snout was often digging about in a pile of something. He realised no one had heard him and looked up, soil still clinging to his snout. They're not doing anything then, just talking. I don't think talking will stop the greys, Squish said. We need a plan, but no one will listen to me. I'm too young. Well, how about hiding the nuts? Colin suggested. Well, they thought of that, but the greys are squirrels too, and they know all about where we would hide them. I don't see how, Brian said, laughing. Even you Reds don't know where you hide them. Everyone knows the squirrels keep forgetting where they've hidden stuff. That's not true, Squish shouted, suddenly angry. Colin and Brian were shocked. They'd never seen Squish angry before. Squish was a bit shocked by himself too. We do know where we hide things, we just don't tell anyone. They sat on a clump of grass near the big black path and thought. If it was another bunch of foxes trying to steal our food, we'd fight them, Colin said. Foxes often had fights. Colin's older brother was nicknamed Half Ear because he had a small piece of the tip of his left ear missing. He said it had happened when he fought off 2 of the foxes, but everyone knew he'd really caught it on a bramble. All the same, all the other animals were a bit afraid of the foxes. Squish wasn't afraid of Colin, though. He'd never been in a fight and preferred to read or wander about in the woods with his friends. We can't fight the greys, Squish said. There are too many of them to fight. Well, you want to do what we do, Brian said. Dig tunnels underground and live there. The greys wouldn't find you underground. Badgers liked it underground. They liked being in the dark with lots of worms to eat. Animals which lived underground, like badgers and rabbits, were always surprising the other animals by suddenly appearing out of holes in the ground. Squirrels can't live underground, Squish said. We don't really like the dark. We like to sit in the trees where we can see everything. So you can't hide the nuts, you can't fight, and you won't live underground, Colin said. So what are you going to do? Well, it sounds to me, said Brian, like you're just going to have to give up. You're just going to have to hand the nuts and acorns over to the greys. Squish thought hard. Now they'd talked about it, it did sound like that. Anyway, Colin said, I don't see what the problem is. There are always nuts and acorns, and it's not like you have to hunt for your food. Squish didn't like to think about that. He knew that foxes learn to hunt when they're very young. That was another reason why the other animals were afraid of the foxes. He also knew Colin was wrong. If the greys took all the nuts and acorns, there might not be any more. He was very close to telling his friends the squirrel's secret, but he stopped himself. I've got to come up with a plan, Squish said. If nobody else will do, then I will. That night, when Squish was tucked up in the dray and his mother and father thought he was asleep, he thought about everything Colin and Brian had said. All the other animals had different ideas about what they would do, but none of the ideas were what the squirrels would do. Then it suddenly struck him. What if? But no, he shook his head. That couldn't possibly work. Could it? But the idea wouldn't go away. Squish finally went to sleep with thoughts whirling around in his head. He woke up early the next morning and the thoughts were still there. Often, if you have thoughts late at night when you're trying to get to sleep, they disappear into dreams and are gone by the morning. The fact that Squish's thoughts were still there meant that they were real. He had an idea. He got up straight away. His mother and father were already up. You're up very early, young Squish, his father said. Couldn't you sleep? Not really, Squish told him. I think I know how to stop the greys. His father laughed. Really, he said, and how is a young squirrel like you planning to stop the greys when all the older squirrels can't come up with an idea between them? That's because you're looking at it the wrong way, Squish said. I want to call a meeting. As soon as he had said it, Squish realised his father was not laughing anymore. Come back tomorrow for the next part. Thanks for listening.